Welcome to 50/50 Books, the book review podcast where the books are split in two, and figuring out just what is going on is always a toss-up. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Jonathan. This episode we are reading Pretty Dead Things by Lilian West up to, but not including, chapter 14.
And we're just going to start right off, mostly for me, and say a bit of a disclaimer, our typical disclaimer, in which we have respect for the author, the work they put in, all of that. We're going to try and be critical rather than just judgmental, rude, hateful, etc. And I'm going to try and contextualize any complaint I have.
Hopefully I can provide some pushback. I think the vibe is maybe we're not loving the book yet, but I think maybe I'm maybe feeling better about it than you are based on our discussion so far. Yeah. But we'll see. I definitely have some feelings, some skepticisms about the way some of this stuff is developed.
Mm-hmm.
But we're back in mystery land, so I'm at least happy to be there. But yeah, it's definitely a bit different than some of the other mysteries we've done. And I want to say, also it's a little historical fiction, but that feels very light right now still at this point in the book, so it doesn't feel fair to say that. And it definitely doesn't feel like what's holding anything back for me at this point, so.
Right. And we probably won't get into most of the way this book is written, stylistically, which really might be most of my problems with it, which again is up to, it's a subjective thing. Just because I don't like the way it might be written doesn't mean it's bad, right? So yeah, who can say? We'll see what happens.
Exactly. But anyway, all that's to say, let's get into it, so we can talk about how we're feeling about the various aspects. So there's, like I mentioned, kind of a historical part of this book where it flashes back to a while back, decades back, and I think I want to talk about that part first, just so we can sort of set the context of what we're going to learn from our main character Cora later on, just with the parts that we see for ourselves, and I guess can say that we know happened, even if they're delivered through certain lenses.
Mm-hmm.
So we can start off with we have the couple Evelyn and Lewis. We see that they get married. I don't even know if going through the years would be helpful here, but they get married in 1943, and we'll use that as kind of the baseline. And the way I wrote in the notes that they have Evelyn, but that's not the kid's name.
It's Beverly.
They have Beverly pretty much a year later, and right off the bat, I feel questionable behavior, at least questionable thought lines from Lewis, because he implies that Evelyn maybe stopped taking birth control without saying so, and that's what led to them having a child.
Mm-hmm.
Which wild, just to be to never talk about it too. He's I can't talk about it because I can't stir the pot, which I feel is kind of his character in general. Is I'm just not going to say anything.
Right. I think the Evelyn stuff pretty early on, we see almost immediately that Lewis isn't exactly happy to be married and within this relationship. And then most of these flashbacks we get are from Lewis's point of view. So we see how he feels restricted and how Evelyn is overbearing and spends all the money and all of this kind of stuff. It's really just justifying the cheating that's going to happen later.
Yeah.
It's the appearance of a happy, good 1940s marriage, but it's pretty obvious it's not like that.
I mean, even from the moment they get married, right? I think the second flashback is their marriage, and it's he's I don't know if I should be doing this, which he kind of talks away as being everyone feels like this on their wedding day, and I'm I guess this is the 1940s, but please don't be feeling that way on your wedding day,
Mm-hmm.
I say as an unmarried human, but I mean, right. It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah. And then later we have descriptions of all the men will meet at the bar and talk about the old ball and chain. And it's
right.
I get it's the 1940s, but yeah, if you're in a relationship right now and you're thinking of your partner as a ball and chain,
right.
Find somebody else. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. And also introspect a little too. Why did you get into that position,
Yeah.
I also this is random, but I was was there birth control in the 1940s? And the answer is probably not. At least not in the way he talks about it as being a pill that she stopped taking that she would have had in her purse. I did some digging on the Planned Parenthood website, and it sounds like the first birth control came out in pill form in the 50s, but wasn't even for birth control. Like you could only get it if you were having like bad period cramps or something.
Right.
And then it
Yeah.
like actually became birth control in the 60s. So this like predates that a little bit. I don't know if the implication is, if there is an implication there, if that was just like a miss, but it's not too far off, but it's not accurate based on that.
It was probably just a miss. I also feel like, considering it's a small town in the Midwest, it's unlikely somebody
Mm.
like Evelyn would be taking birth control anyway. Like,
Yeah, I thought it was shocking, like to be
yeah,
in this time period where like we're trying to set like, I know there. I feel like the author does set the vibe with kind of this relationship of it being decades ago and kind of a traditional relationship. I'm shocked that birth control would be acceptable.
right, yeah. That is weird though. Like, why? Yeah, it's probably just to justify Lewis and like set up this kind of abusive relationship. Because that is abusive, by the way.
Because that
like,
is abuse. Yeah,
yeah,
that it's another type of stealthing. It'd be really bad if that's what happened. So
right. So yeah, it's probably just to really, because like a demanding wife, a nagging wife, like it's more of a gray area. But like her doing this is like, oh, now we can like truly justify Lewis finding somebody else and like trying to live
right.
a happy life with them. That kind of thing. That's how I imagine it probably went.
Yeah. No, that sounds right. And yeah, I think it just does line up with the Evelyn characterization.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess too, I was just like upset that we only start at the moment that they get married, and like, yeah, like you're right. We only hear from Evelyn once, and then like mostly get Lewis's story of being disgruntled, because we don't really ever see like why they got married, right? Like we don't get into development on the relationship. It's one of those things where I think we're just supposed to accept it as it is, but then it does kind of just leave us to take Lewis's word. Like I want to know that there was something that led them to get married before this that then fell apart, as opposed to like, but maybe that wasn't the case. Like maybe Lewis was always just like kind of like a pushover character who like couldn't express what he wanted and therefore ended up in a relationship he didn't want to be in.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly likely. It is confusing because Evelyn clearly has high aspirations, like monetarily at least, but she doesn't want to work. So the question is like, why would she marry a woodworker, right? Like, are we
Hmm,
at the point in which that would be a
that's a good point.
desirable partner? Like somebody who would make you a lot of money? Not really, right?
Yeah, it definitely doesn't seem to hold status of his own.
Right.
That's a good point. So, like, do you think then it's because she actually liked him? I guess is what we're getting at, right?
Either that or, like, to your point, he was a pushover, so she could do kind of whatever she wanted with him.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah.
we can kind of talk about where that goes next. So we get Clarity, who is a local artist, and Lewis, like, he's like, I get like this 15-minute respite from my family and work life, and I immediately fall in love with this girl who I pass by. And so he like starts entertaining her, going into her shop, though I guess it takes a while for him to work it up, which kind of feels worse to me because I'm like, wow, you were really stewing on the cheating.
Right.
And you still decided to do it, but there's a lot of like justifying of like, oh, it was just a little bit of this and a little bit of that until it, gets too far. But yeah, so he starts spending time with her. What's funny too is like they start doing the flea market together because they are both like crafts people. And so the whole reason they start going to the flea market is actually because Evelyn was the one like being like, you should do this, like you should go to the flea market. And like it's kind of it's again portrayed negatively of her being kind of like, yeah, like nagging about it, but like dropping little hints around the house and being like, why aren't you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
So it just feels like extra shady that it's like it was Evelyn who suggested you do this, and you're like, okay, I'll do it, but I'm going to take my mistress.
I mean, yeah. It's interesting that they built an entire relationship together, considering he only gets, like, I guess these flea markets and then, like, an hour of free time.
Mm.
But they are, like, committed by the time we finished half of this book about. It's not realistically a lot of time, I feel like.
But I get the sense when we see those scenes towards the end of this half that like they spend some time together at the house. Like the fact that he like puts up a bookshelf in her house while she's gone, like he is especially welcome there. And so I would think as time goes on, he finds ways to spend more time with her, especially privately in the home.
That's interesting, though, considering how controlling Evelyn is, though. It's like, where is he finding that time?
I guess I would have to double check too, like how much time passes between like them meeting. I'm sure we could figure this out looking at the timestamps, but like them meeting and like that last scene that we see.
I think he said it had been like 6 months or so.
Okay, that's really not that much time for full behavior changes, especially if he's trying to go unnoticed.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah, they're like, we see them in her house like kissing and stuff, so like he must have some time on his hands.
Yeah. I also think this is wild because, like, by this point, we've gotten one Clarity flashback that isn't even about this relationship. It's about, like, the graves we're gonna probably talk about later. But there's just something so disconcerting, might be too strong of a word, but there's something off, I think, about, like, us trying to portray Clarity as like a full human, and like she was perceived by the whole town to have this bad reputation, but yet there's only one flashback about Clarity as a person, and it's not even about the affair she had. Like, why is she in love with Lewis? Like, what is the relationship on her side of things? Why does she decide to cheat with somebody, right? Like, there are just things that don't make sense from her end, considering she seems to be such like a strong, independent woman within this time period. I don't get it, and it feels like a disservice at this point. I don't know how many flashbacks we get in the second half that are from her, but like, yet we just don't see any of the relationship from her point of view.
Yeah, I hear you. My theory is we're going to see more flashbacks from her later in the book. I think it is like the nature of the fact that she is the one who goes missing in this book, that the author probably doesn't want to give too much away too quickly about her. Though there's probably ways to do it, but I guess it just depends on like what the story is. So I agree with you, but I'm hesitant to be upset about it yet.
Yeah.
I was a little upset that it took her 9 chapters to get named, though. I was like,
I know.
Why is she just like the other woman for so long? Especially because the name doesn't, at least I don't think, gives like anything away about what happens to her. So I would have liked a name, if not just to make my notes easier.
Yeah. And also the name that Cora gets is I think this is changed by Juliet a little bit later, but originally she gets like Clarity Shaw, which isn't even her name, it's her married name, which I thought was a little strange. And then we learn it's actually Clarity Gray. I feel like she should have just been Clarity Gray the whole time.
That's a good point. Like, I mean, we already figured out the married stuff from other parts,
right?
And also, I think the opening chapter is her, right? Like this opening flashback of the marriage and the navy wedding dress and the not like other girls stuff.
Yeah. This is like technically another Clarity flashback, but it's like so not in time with everything else happening that I just don't really count it. Like, I don't know how she reaches this point.
It was a little confusing that we started there.
Yeah. I think maybe we're supposed to start there so that we know she was happy to get married, like she was excited about it, and like they obviously were a relationship that people in town wouldn't like, but they were going to do it anyway. Like, I think it's just setting kind of like the scene, the reputation.
That's true. It was funny because when I read that chapter, she's kind of giving the whole no one understands me when it comes to my relationship. Like, everyone has their opinions, their thoughts, and they don't get it. I'm like, maybe the author is doing a good job, or she really like has no reason for us to be like, yeah, you were misunderstood, you know? To me, I'm like, yeah, like I'm seeing you get married and finding out later that it was all like from cheating and you definitely knew he was married. It's like, what don't we understand? So I guess we'll see. But right now I'm like, I don't know why you're so upset about everyone being upset about your relationship.
Yeah, I'm also just so hesitant because if we continue the flashbacks, other than this first one, in chronological order, then it's like, are we going to see? Like, are we going to understand? Because they're already together, right? Like,
we've already seen the source.
Right. So I just, I don't know. It just, I don't know. There's something, you could have done a bit more with them. Maybe had Cora find them herself.
Oh, that could have been interesting.
I guess that ends up a bit like How to Solve Your Own Murder, like a very similar idea there, but you know, who cares?
Speaking of Cora, we can bring it to the present and the connection between Cora and the rest of these stories. So Cora finds herself at a estate sale and just picks up a jar of baubles, as she'd put it, and finds 2 rings in there and becomes very interested in them and kind of feels like, oh, like these probably aren't supposed to be in here. Like, I wonder if they know that they sold it with this in here. And I do think any other person with a head on their shoulders would just have kept them. But of course, that's not what Cora does. So she decides to investigate them a little bit. She looks at them closely and sees that they have engravings.
Right. So, okay, I think the first ring says, for example, V and N, or it's like Y and M, like 2 names engraved onto the ring. And then the second ring, I think, is always, which is like clear enough, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the Y could possibly be clarity, like that makes sense.
Like the end of her name, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So clarity and, but then we have an N or an M name.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've ever heard Clarity say his name. Is his name Lewis? Or does he have a different name? Like the way somebody might call like somebody by a middle name or a nickname or like something, right? Like there are explanations that could come from it.
It'll be weird if it's not theirs, but right now I'm like not convinced that it is.
Yeah, the question is like, then whose is it, right?
Yeah,
like
I don't know. I'm just like getting the vibe we just don't know enough yet for these.
Yeah.
Just a shame. This is something where I'm like, oh, I want to theorize, but really like there's not that. I guess there are a number of characters in the book, but there's really not like a ton of mystery ones. Oh, actually, there are some mystery characters. There's like the doctor that gets mentioned a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess I'd be surprised if they become involved enough for this to be theirs, but it's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would feel comfortable saying the rings are probably just Clarity's because Hazel has such a strong reaction to them for some reason. Like, I feel like it'd be weird if they weren't Clarity's.
That's fair. Well, Cora decides she's gonna figure out who these belong to, even though she is unsuccessful with that. But she talks to several members of the family to try to make sure they make it back to, you know, anyone who might be interested in them. Though I do have some trouble believing her, and I wonder if she has some trouble believing herself when she says, like, I'm not doing it to pry, like, I'm doing it to, like, rightfully return the rings to someone who might want them and, like, be, you know, totally comprehensive and asking all the living family members. It isn't until, like, pretty close to the end of this half where she's like, well, now I am kind of just interested. But I kind of just feel like that's what it was from the beginning. Like, she was just, you know, she just moved not that long ago from the West Coast to this kind of small town in the Midwest. Doesn't seem like she's got a lot of friends. It doesn't seem like she has a job right now. Like, I think maybe there's something to be said about the fact that she's bored.
Yeah, I can't remember if it's like at the very beginning or relatively close to the beginning, but she does say like, this would make such an interesting story. Like if I were to write part-time, of course she's a writer, rolls eyes.
Classic.
Yeah. But like she's invested in the possibility of like some forsaken romance, some weird mystery, like that something is happening. She doesn't have any evidence that anything has happened, that there is anything amiss or like nefarious going on. Even though she seems to think so for some reason, but like, yeah, I think the idea of a story is enticing to her. So it's not completely like genuine, good feelings, I guess.
And like, I don't 100% get like the like a doubt about that from Cora the way she's written, but I just have to assume that that's the case. Like, she also like she gets a lot of pushback both from her or I say both, but from several sources, from her friend at first, or actually maybe even her husband at first, or fiance, I guess. And then like she gets pushback from the family, particularly from Beverly, and she still like commits to it. So I don't think she would do that if it wasn't kind of a voyeuristic interest.
Yeah, I think the problem is like Beverly later, it would be easy enough to say, I'm trying to figure out what happened because a woman might have been murdered, right? Like, I think that's fine justification, but for some odd reason, Cora doesn't, like, think like that, really. Like, she has a weird thought where she's like, do I really want to pry and, like, ruin these 3 sisters and, like, get into their business? Like, I'm not really sure. And I'm like, a woman was possibly murdered. Like, what do you mean you don't want to get involved? Like, it's just so confusing.
Like, we've actually reached the point where maybe there's a justified interest.
Right. Like, by that point in the book, there is
That's fair.
yes, you should look into it. Like, it is a serious thing that has possibly happened, and you have the information. But she doesn't, like, actively choose, really, to get involved in this, for the most part. Like, by this end point, which I've skipped ahead to, but, like, she gets dragged into it, right? Like, Hazel is just like, we're gonna go see my father, and it's like, like, what are you talking about?
I guess that's a fair point. I was like more skeptical of the earlier ones where like the husband and the friend were like naysaying a bit, because I'm like, well, like you guys aren't exactly like giving good reasons, and you're just kind of like, you kind of are just naysaying. Like,
the fiance was so funny, because Elliot was like, well, first of all, this happens a few times, but like a character will give the information and then say, but you shouldn't do anything with that. Like, Elliot is like, what was the family's name again? And then it causes her to remember Shaw. And then he's like, oh, you don't mess with the Shaw family. Stop looking into it. And it's like, why did you ask? If you don't want her to look into it, why did you ask?
He was like actually kind of a dick about it, the way he treated her, being like, just don't mess with my small town, whatever, like, mind your business. I'm like,
right,
sir, she moved here for you. Like, you need to relax. I did not like him in that moment. No,
he sucks. To be fair, he sucks. One of my first notes was, she's obviously gonna end up with somebody else, right? But there are like there are no other men.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. There's no other characters for it. Mm-hmm.
But I feel like that would be the classic setup, is like a fiance that doesn't understand you, and then you have another male character come in, and like, you don't necessarily cheat.
Ends up with Juliet.
Oh, absolutely not. They are not giving sapphic energy at all.
Because that's the only like buddy friend, right? Like, I think that usually does happen when it's like, oh, like a buddy in like a buddy detective, you know?
Yeah, but Juliet is like so buddy, like cliche, superficial, best friend character. I just do not see it.
No, I agree. I'm just throwing it out there. She's the closest thing.
Yeah, she is, to be fair.
Yeah, no, I really was like, if anyone's going to make me actually get invested in Cora doing this stuff, it's going to be Elliot being a pain. Because otherwise, I was like, I don't get it. But like, once he started doing that, I was like, I would do it out of spite.
It's like, oh my God, it's just so crazy. This is a bit of a tangent, but like, I just don't understand straight people, I guess, is the general thing to say. Because like, why this relationship has like no chemistry. They seem miserable. Like, we get in the beginning of the book just descriptions of how Cora has to hear about all of this disgusting like dentist talk, and like how they don't even live together. Like, it's just not a good vibe between them at all. And I'm like, why are you together? I didn't even think about the
fact that they don't live together.
No, they don't.
She moved there for him.
Right. I'm like, how did you even afford this apartment, girl? You don't have a job.
And she's not working. Oh my God.
It's insane.
No. Because so I wish we hadn't highlighted them, because sometimes those do tend to be like the little kind of nitpickier side, but like the little things that bother me about some mysteries are like these kind of like they introduce a piece of background like that doesn't get explained, like the fact that Cora lives alone but is about to get married to this man that she moved halfway across the country for. Like that shouldn't have been, that was too much information given to the reader if we weren't going to explain.
I think it's just because like his parents are traditional.
Well, his mom is at the least.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But I don't know. They just have like absolutely zero chemistry, and they obviously like just don't vibe. But I'm like, wow, she really is settling, isn't she?
That's probably the case. At best, they're friends.
Yeah, at
honestly.
best. At best.
Yeah. The last thing I'll mention about Cora, because it's probably going to be relevant later on, is there's a mention that she witnessed. Well, she didn't. I don't know if she witnessed the car accident, but her parents died in a car accident, and she did witness their dead bodies, and it sounded gross and bloody and visceral. So light mention of trauma here that that doesn't get addressed super much later down the line. I assume this is going to be used to explain her prying or investment or something later down the line, but I haven't figured out the exact way I think that's going to happen.
And of course, Cora got no therapy apparently when she was growing up, but I guess that's fine.
Like, it would be upsetting, but maybe it really is just like to give her a background, like to give her
I feel
some
like it.
history, I guess, you know?
Yeah, try and like give depth to her character, I suppose.
I hope. Now I hope it comes back to matter a bit, because that would be upsetting.
Yeah, I mean it's also a poor attempt. I feel like most of the characters in this book are quite superficial, including
Yeah,
Cora.
that's fair. So Cora does the family tour. So she first gets in touch with Beverly, who is the oldest daughter, who we actually get mention of in the flashbacks, daughter of Lewis and Evelyn, to be specific. We already mentioned she confirms that the rings are not her parents. We also get a brief look. Not us, Cora gets a brief look at a wedding photo of her parents, in which she also is able to see that the ring in that photo is the one that Beverly wears around her neck. So that kind of gives us like the double confirm that it isn't the rings that she has.
Mm-hmm.
I did notice that ring she wears on her neck gets a lot of mentions. Like, she kisses it, she holds it, like she touches it when she has a strong reaction, and that makes me think it's being mentioned for a reason. I have kind of a stretch theory that maybe I'll bring up later on for why, but I wanted to bring it up and see if you had any thoughts of like, is this just to be like, I love my mother? Or do you think there's something deeper to why this ring is getting so much mention while we're focused on another ring?
I really think like this whole thing is really the start of trying to make Evelyn seem like the best person that ever existed. Beverly is really the one like conducting that train here. There was a period of time in which Beverly was being raised, I suppose, by a single mother. So I could understand kind of that hero worship, like really respecting her mom type of vibe she gave, like especially because Evelyn probably was well, I mean she was the victim, so it was probably a rough time for her considering the time period.
Maybe I'll bring up my theory now.
Okay.
because like, this isn't the one I'm maybe gonna like commit to, but like, do we know how old Beverly was when goodness, the name's Clarity goes missing?
Okay, the difference in age between Beverly and Ruth is I think 18 years, and Beverly was about 5 or 6 when Lewis and Clarity started hooking up. So it must have been 5 plus like 12, I guess. So like 17, 16, 17, 18.
Okay. Old enough.
Old enough.
I think she could have disappeared Clarity.
Oh yeah, that's what I
right?
think.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
And all of this like praise to her mom is like is kind of the evidence of it, of being like, she like was kind of obsessive about her mother, and like, because she was wrong, decided to disappear Clarity.
Yeah, I mean, I think the if we're gonna just talk about this now, I guess I think the obvious theory would probably be that Evelyn disappeared Clarity, which I could
the
believe.
one I'm more comfortable with. Yeah,
but
I'm tempted to believe that one, but I want to entertain this.
I also have the idea that like Beverly, especially if she was like festering in rage at being abandoned, and like Evelyn was just shit talking Clarity and Lewis the whole time, which I could believe. I don't necessarily think Beverly might have intended for her to die necessarily. Like, I don't think she planned it out meticulously, although that would be insane. It could have just been like a crime of passion. She ended up hurting or killing Clarity, and then Evelyn might have helped her cover it up and dealt with it, and that's why she's so like thankful about it all. Of course, there's also the Joe situation, so like maybe he was also involved, is what I'm thinking.
Ooh, okay. I have different thoughts about Joe, and we can talk about him because he's in this section. So my thought on Joe, so Joe notably gives kind of a weird look while Cora's leaving, and I thought this is a I know something look, but I don't necessarily think it's a I'm guilty look. Like, I think maybe he knows what happened and doesn't necessarily agree with it, but maybe he found it out later down the line. Like, I don't know. He's keeping it as a deep, dark secret, but like, it's not actually something he was involved with. And I think maybe there's a chance he's like the key to figuring out exactly what happened, if like she can get him to budge or something.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I could see Beverly kind of taking after her mom, and if she married somebody that was also kind of a pushover, I think it would make sense for Joe to kind of just accept it. Like, nobody liked Clarity anyway, and like Evelyn is kind of prized in the town, so you just kind of shut up and deal with it, and it's fine, whatever, whatever. Like, I could see that kind of
Or
vibe going on.
maybe he even started off by like, I'm sure Evelyn, even if she did it by Beverly, even if she killed her by mistake, probably would like double down. And so
Yeah.
maybe she had convinced Joe at first that she should have died, and Joe agreed, and then like he's gonna come out later down the line and be like, actually, I don't agree.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think a conversation with Joe is a necessity within this book.
I'd be curious to see how that even happens. But I agree. I think it's going to happen. I just don't know what the conditions will be.
Yeah.
Sorry, we did get right into it. But some other things about this interaction with Beverly that I noticed. One was they mentioned that their mom being Evelyn, went to the nursing home with their dad, even though she was apparently healthier than him. And I kind of am connecting dots between that and the whole fact that I think Cora and maybe Juliet both question why Lewis would have gotten back together with Evelyn after all that happened. Like there's something like weird about that. So like connecting that with the fact that she kind of followed him to the nursing home, I'm like, to what level was Evelyn like maybe controlling Lewis after a certain amount of time, you know? And maybe like for the rest of his life in a way that she felt the need to follow him to the nursing home to like either like keep an eye on him or keep control. Like that's kind of the implication I'm getting, is like maybe a bizarre level of control from Evelyn.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think the getting together again makes sense if they had like Hazel. You don't really do like single fathers within this time period, really. Like,
Right.
the idea is that like every kid should have a mother. Like, more than anything, you need a mother to nurture them. And so like getting back with Evelyn for the sake of Hazel, even if I don't know how that relationship worked, but Hazel was at least there, it seemed like. So I could understand getting back together. It's also like, it's shameful, but there is kind of like a, oh, he finally came to his senses type of mentality.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I do, and like at first I was like, I feel like being suspicious of this is not helpful, really.
Yeah.
But like then looking back at this, I was like, well, like maybe there's something weird about the fact that she went back to the nursing home with him that maybe implies something spookier.
Yeah, the nursing home is strange. I could maybe believe like Evelyn not knowing Clarity is dead with this, maybe. Like, maybe that's why she stuck so closely with him, because she was worried Clarity would always like come back. Or just
That's
like
true.
the general, like, if somebody cheats once, they're going to cheat again.
Yeah, that's kind of what I
type
was
of
thinking.
thing.
Yeah. Look, it could even be like, I think Beverly might have even phrased it as like she sent her mom with him, as opposed to like even it being her own choice. And so
Oh,
like
interesting.
if we like we'll have to double check that, but like if that's the case, like it really could be that Beverly is the one in full control of this, right? Because if she got rid of Clarity, so that way her parents would get back together, she maybe found some way to make that happen, right? That would lead to the reason why the author would have Cora questioning it, to like effectively force them back together. Like maybe this has less to do with her love of her mom and more of her inability to handle what happened, that like the separation of her parents, and really it's like a commitment to like doing whatever it takes to have the parents be together physically, and that's why this happened.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That makes a lot of sense.
I think I'm like imagining Beverly as like almost like a thriller level villain, you know, which I don't know if is like what this book is going for, but I'm definitely like imagining a very manipulative character here.
I don't know. Like, I think it's easy to believe that, but going through it, I don't. Yeah, we don't exactly get that vibe, right? So
Yeah, it's definitely filling in a lot of gaps.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why I still like, to me, like Evelyn disappearing Clarity would still make a ton of sense, and maybe it's even more likely, just because I do think like there's a lot we haven't gotten yet. But like the other things too being like Beverly doesn't mention the cheating or Hazel when talking to Cora, which like fine, like that's kind of a lot of information to give a stranger.
Mm-hmm.
But I could easily see her not doing so because she's trying to distance this stranger from any information, like get this stranger as far away from information related to her crime as possible, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely believe that. It seems like the Shaw family mess it's known by the older people in the town, but not the younger people. Like, Elliot knows you stay away from the Shaws, but he doesn't know why. And then Juliet obviously like knows nothing as well. So it seems like Evelyn and then possibly Beverly worked very hard to cover up all of that, like all of that mess, basically.
Yeah.
So it definitely makes sense for Beverly to just not speak about it, especially because she probably fucking hates Hazel, to be fair.
Right.
It's shocking that like Ruth says anything about it, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
But for some odd reason, Cora is just trusted by everybody in this book. I don't know.
Classic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to Ruth while we're talking about her? Yeah, there's some interesting stuff here. So first I'll mention that Beverly calls Ruth to let her know someone's coming. And so that kind of gives me the vibe of a bit of, they're sisters, right? But maybe there's like a bit of allyship happening here when it comes to like story control. That's kind of my thought on that, especially with something that happens later. Cora shows her the rings and she's kind of like, yep, like don't really know what's up with that. I don't know why, like here I started to get suspicious of if this was a lie. Like she knows what the rings are and is just trying to like not give information and like not feed into the drama, which again, I think is valid as a response. But I also don't know if I actually have any concrete reasons for believing that.
She was born after everything had already happened. So it would make sense why she wouldn't know anything.
And I could get the vibe that if she does know something or not, either way, she's trying to protect her sister.
Yeah,
because her sister like lived through it. I don't know. Yeah, you could disagree with me on this, but like especially because she does tell Bev when Cora decides to visit Hazel, which was like Ruth's idea kind of. And also she was like, don't tell her. And then she told her. So I was like, okay, there's like something here.
That was so annoying because like Ruth had to tell it to Cora like 3 times, like keep it to yourself. And then Cora still did not understand what she was saying for some reason, which was frustrating. But then, yeah, the fact that Ruth said that and then not even that long after, it's just like, oh yeah, Bev knows that you went to go see Hazel. That's chill, I guess. Right. It like also wasn't that big of a deal that she saw Hazel. Bev is really just like, don't go see my father, which honestly I think is kind of fair.
I think that's fair. She gives a pretty good reason. It's like he's 100, he could just die at this point. Like we really don't need to involve him.
Right. Like I understand the position Cora should be at. She's not, but she should be at like a woman was possibly murdered, we should look into it type of vibe. Yes. And then the Beverly side, which is like, my father is 100 and has gone through like a lot, so we should probably leave him alone, to be fair.
I find myself like fighting with myself on this a little bit because I'm like, if Cora was like a historian or a detective, like would I be more okay with this? Is it just because she's like running her own scheme here to get this stuff figured out that I have a problem with it? I think the answer might be yes, which I don't like because I'm like, well, no, then if that's the case, like maybe I do support her trying to figure this stuff out.
Yeah, in my head, it's like, it's fine, right? Because Hazel said she could go and speak to their father. Like, Hazel's also Lewis's kid. Yeah, so I'm like, this is completely justifiable.
I guess, but it's like she's already like kind of crossed some lines, I feel like.
I don't know if I would say so. Only because, like, she's pried, quote unquote, but she hasn't actually, like, pushed so much for information. It kind of just has been delivered to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Juliet is probably more like a troublemaker than Cora is. Like, true. They break into a grave, like a cemetery, so... Well, do they break in? They hop a fence. I don't know.
Yeah, they hop a fence. That's kind of breaking it. I get what you mean.
Yeah.
I guess my thought was just like when she meets Bev and Bev is kind of like, you really shouldn't bother with this stuff. Like she does eventually give Ruth's information, but her inclination was like, you just shouldn't. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like that should have been the end of it because it's like you are talking to the daughter of the person you think these belong to. And she said, drop it. I just feel like that's that. Once you go past that line, well, now you're doing too much.
Yeah, which is why I was confused by the motivation, right? Because Beverly is the one that set up the estate sale, to our knowledge. Mm-hmm. So everything that got sold was passed through by Beverly. So, like, if she's saying it's fine,
right,
it probably is fine. And there's no reason to, like, think anything nefarious had happened in regard to the rings. Like, even
I
when
just
we
think
get
it's not
to
even her right.
right, right. Even when we get to the point where like we learn about the cheating and like the past relationship, even then I'm like, I still don't think it's weird that the rings are there. Like,
Yeah.
if Lewis and Clarity had like split up, for example, and he got the rings back, maybe they just ended up in that jar. Like, there is a lot of possibilities that are entirely innocent in regards to the situation. So I don't understand like why we think something bad has happened.
I don't even know if she thinks that though. Like she's on her whole thing about like I need to get the rings back to the like to their family, like to the person who belongs to it, and I just don't know who it belongs to. I really don't think it becomes like a nefarious thing until Hazel.
Yeah, but I don't understand like why that's such an important thought in her head. Like why it like I said, the motivation just doesn't click for me because it's
Yeah.
like you're being told by multiple people, like two people really, that like the rings are nothing. Like that should be the end of it, right? Like and even Juliet is like, okay, you've done the thing. Like it's over. It's fine. So there's like no reason to keep going. Like to your point, like why is she pushing so much? It to me it's because the author knows obviously that there is something more going on, and so Cora must progress. But like within the context of the story and what Cora knows, it doesn't really make sense for her to progress, really.
Yeah, I guess that's why I'm saying like I don't think she thinks there's something nefarious, but obviously we do, right?
Yeah.
Because we are reading this book. But and then that's why I'm like I also feel like I'm looking for that. I think like this is what I was getting at earlier. I feel like it's a bit of self-importance from her, really, of
Yeah.
just being like I need to be a part of a story. I'm bored. I need something to do, like anything like that.
Yeah, I really just think there was a better way to bring up the Clarity situation so that like Cora's early motivations would feel like more justified and like would make sense within her character. But I think that's difficult, right? To like not just what I mentioned, but like writing is difficult when you have to separate what you know from what your character knows, right? Cuz like
Yeah, for sure.
you know everything. So it's just like a divide that I think can be hard.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I got a little bit into stylistic conversation there. I
Yeah,
had
you're
to
good,
slip
you're
it
good.
in, but
It makes sense here.
yeah. But the Ruth stuff is wild. I don't really vibe with Ruth's character too much, but
Oh,
it's fine.
I thought she was fine. She actually like I don't know, she's a bit more comfortable than Beverly, right? She's actually willing to talk about the breakup and the cheating and all that stuff that all happened before she was even there to witness it. So I don't know. Maybe it's just easier for her to talk about too, but like the fact that she's willing to open up is kind of nice, even if Cora doesn't deserve it per se, you know. I think it just feels more normal. Like Bev felt intentionally closed off, which I think will make sense probably when we find out what's up with her, but like in this, it's like, okay, like this is a normal conversation. It's like, yeah, like our family was dramatic. It's really not that big a deal. Like it's you know, shit happens. Like here it is.
Yeah, the only interesting thing is like the fact that she's so blasé about it, but like we don't know this for certain, but if she still talks to Hazel, like why does she not know the rumors about what happened to Clarity? Like,
is it that she doesn't know or she just doesn't say?
well, because she explains that Clarity and Lewis, their relationship ended, and then Evelyn and Lewis ended up getting back together. Like, she portrays it in that regard, which Cora notes could have been a lie, but it's not really a lie. But so it's possible she lied, right? Like she tried to make it neater, whatever. But if Ruth sends her off to go speak to Hazel, like the expectation is Cora's going to find out all of the information about the disappearance anyway. So I don't understand the lie, I guess, if it is a lie.
That's a good point. Maybe this is like her playing politics a bit with her sisters, though.
Maybe, yeah.
Like she's like I said, I feel like she is trying to defend Bev a little bit, and she does tell her about the Hazel visit. So it feels like to a degree she's like, I want to make my own choices here and like tell Cora what I feel like I want to tell her, but I don't want to upset Bev, so I can't say that stuff. But I can send her to where she can figure it out.
That's fair. That's a good, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. That'd be a good way to do it for sure.
Yeah. And then maybe this even explains why she tells her, just to like put it out there up front so she doesn't hear it from the roundabout.
Right.
With that, do we want to talk about Hazel for a sec? because we've already mentioned her a number of times, but one thing to highlight here is that she full on cries when she sees those rings, and then it's like, but I don't even know if they're my mom's, which is, I think, weird. Like,
Insane.
why would you get so emotional about it if you're like, I actually don't even know if they're my mom's? Like, is it just that it's a sensitive topic? Even after all this time, I mean, I could believe it's a sensitive topic. It's her mom, but like, I don't know. Like, you're just given a random piece of jewelry and you assume it's your mother's.
Yeah, it's weird. The crazy thing is, this, along with the cemetery scene with Juliet and Cora, I was briefly like, did we miss a tag where there's actually like magic in this book? Like, I'm so confused. But no, I think this is just a weird scene.
Yeah, it's just weird. Yeah, other things here, she mentions more detail. Well, she actually is the first one that mentions that Clarity went missing to Cora. That is still not brought up a single time up until this point. She mentions the state of things, which maybe will come into play later. As far as like her gardening tools were still there, and the straw hat was found in the neighboring field, which Bev will come to naysay that a little bit later on. I think, but no, Mimi comes to naysay that a little bit later on. And then she kind of just does the vague, like, it's more complicated than what you think it is, which I think like everyone from this point on in the story thinks about this,
Mm-hmm.
and just feels like, I don't know. I just feel like that's it's true, but nothing is inaccurate, and Cora kind of like treats the information like she's gotten as though it's inaccurate, which I definitely disagree with. Like, Bev and Ruth were definitely holding back and simplifying, but I'd hesitate to say that they were inaccurate.
Yeah, like I said, like Ruth saying they split up or like the relationship ended and then blah blah blah. Like, that's not
Yeah.
inaccurate. That is what happened. She just didn't mention the fact that one half of the relationship disappeared mysteriously.
Yeah.
So
Like, I guess it's just like maybe said that way to put an angle on Ruth and Beverly for the reader to like be a little mistrustful, but I guess we already probably are mistrustful at this point. Like, we're not going to just take it at its word, so.
yeah, I mean, at least we know it's not Ruth because she was literally not born.
Yeah.
But the family comes a little bit
Yes,
under a microscope.
I think that's pretty much it with Hazel. She does say we can ask the one person who knows, Dad, which I do think is a little wild given what Bev says. Like, he's 100 and like in a nursing home, but she's willing. So, and I guess like this is her mom too. So
Yeah, I think it's fine that Hazel wants to ask her father. I just don't understand why Cora's invited, to be fair.
Yeah.
She's done the thing. She gave the rings back.
She's invited so we can see the scene.
Well, yes. But I'm saying, like, I hate that. I don't like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is about where we left off in regards to the family. I don't want to say the investigation because there's more things we discover, but I don't remember where.
It's kind of minimal. Yeah. It's mostly the sisters that deliver everything here.
Yeah, and then a little bit with Mimi, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I was a little, so let's talk about Mimi, because I was a little disappointed. I thought we were going to get more from her than we do.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Juliet's grandma. We mentioned Juliet, her friend, earlier on, and I was like excited because I'm like, okay, this is like a local who's like willing to talk about things, unlike the Shaws,
Mm-hmm.
right? And certainly unlike Elliot, who is like just not only does he not want her to do anything with this stuff, but he actually doesn't know anything either. So
Yeah.
So Mimi mentions, again, the story is more complicated than it seems. She's like, the hat being found blown away means nothing, though I'm like, I don't know. In the case of someone missing, it feels like it means something, but go ahead. We get another mention of this doctor character, and this shows up also in like a book that Cora comes across in her investigations later on, of like, there was a doctor who maybe had his eye on Clarity, and maybe the doctor's wife was a jealous character. We don't really have names. We don't have details. Like, it's very high level. But Mimi seemed to remember that as part of it as well. And I'm not immediately like, they're like, oh, Clarity is just like running off from man to man. I'm like, not immediately on board with that explanation. Who knows what the relationship was with this doctor? Could have been a stalker, could have just been like into her, and like that could have been what caused drama. Didn't actually have to turn into anything else, but I guess people wanted an explanation for her going missing, and maybe that's why they're willing to do that with this doctor character.
Right. This was insanity to me. Like, I think I mentioned this before, but like, this is one of those instances where Mimi is like, oh yeah, everybody was obsessed with her, and then she disappeared, and I'm like, okay, we've like raised the stakes here in regards to the situation, men were obsessed with her,
Right.
possibly stalking her, could have hurt her, and we're just like, and then Mimi's like, but just let the story die. And I'm like, uh, 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 excuse me? Like, what do you mean? You just told me a woman was possibly stalked, assaulted, murdered. Anything could have happened, and we're supposed to just let it go? What? I'm
I guess
sorry.
there's something to
Like,
be said about like it's been decades, but you just know that they've had this behavior about it the whole time, like from the start.
right? It's just so.
You know.
The Mimi stuff is also funny because it's not like it's like third hand. This is like a
Oh
third
yeah.
hand account, right? Because
I was
Mimi
expecting that
isn't.
though.
Yeah, Mimi isn't like seeing any of this herself. Like she was a child when it was going on, I think.
Yeah.
So she's hearing about it as gossip from other women, like her mother and like her mother's friends. So it's like again, we're just getting a perspective of clarity that just like isn't anything. Like it feels almost kind of worthless. Like I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because the other thing that upsets me about Mimi here is like when we're in the cemetery scene, Juliet is like, "Oh, I got Grandma drinking, and she told me some more stuff." And like,
Mm,
I actually have no notes of what Mimi said because I don't think she actually said anything new when Juliet says that. And like, we don't see that scene, which is upsetting. I'm like, why did we write that happened and not see it just in the scene? Like, why did we dodge that?
yeah, it blah, blah, blah. It was the opportunity for Cora to do some investigating of her own. Like, I think the information we get is about like the Gray family, I guess, and them being buried and stuff like that. But none of that is like useful information anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I guess it gives us her maiden name, but there are like so many more clever ways to get that, I guess, is the
Yeah.
point. But yeah, it's kind of like it's like nothing. We just kind of hear about it. Whatever.
Yeah.
Juliet, I guess good job. I don't know.
Yeah. It's just underwhelming, I suppose.
And this is also like the weird part where we get like the witch stuff that gets
Oh
brought up.
yeah.
It had like it was dumb tension, I think, like to do like the whole independent woman is a witch thing, but like it was the start of something that could have maybe been interesting, but then it completely just like destroyed its own momentum. There's just no point at that point. Cut it out of the book. I don't know what
I
to
guess
tell you.
I'm just like she was just an artist, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't know.
She lived in the woods. What can you do?
Yeah. That's I guess just like her family was known, whatever. I guess people thought previous family members were also witchy, so
I don't know why. I don't know why. Because like there were what
I guess
5
because they
graves?
get buried in woman-only graveyards, you know. That's what witches do.
Yeah, I don't think the graveyard was woman's only.
Oh, is it? Oh well, yeah, I guess right. I guess just the women get buried together.
Yeah, they get buried like under their maiden name, but there were only
Yeah.
like 5 graves, and I think Juliet mentioned like one of the graves dated back to the Civil War. So I'm like, that's really not that many people. Like,
Yeah, that's true. It's not that many generations.
yeah, like why would you assume this is a weird happening instead of just like a few women a part of this family that just didn't get married? Like I didn't understand why it was a weird situation.
Yeah. It's just I feel like I'm just trying to explain it away. I'm like small town stuff, like it's all whatever. But yeah, I
Yeah,
kind of hear you. I hear you that there's like maybe not enough teeth here.
yeah. Especially if you're not going to do anything with it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there's time, but I kind of doubt it.
Yeah.
That's the only other thing I want to mention that happens in this part of the book is like while she's doing her little internet investigation. Correct me if it's not this scene, but I think it's like while she's doing her internet investigation and she like reads the book excerpt. Like moments after we find out that Cora has like a tornado specific fear, there is a tornado scare.
Mm-hmm.
And she like literally has to like go to the basement and everyone's like huddled up and they can even like hear the wind picking up and everything. And I think the only like this is how do I want to talk about this? Because I mentioned like we're trying not to get too much into like style and stuff, but like I this is like really where I'm like I don't really understand at all why this is in the book.
Yeah.
Like what happened here? I was just confused. Like the fear got introduced moments ago, and then the thing happened, and maybe it interrupted her research, but not really. Like what else was she going to get out of that?
Yeah, I think it was supposed to interrupt her research. I feel like a clean enough break from what was happening. But yeah, it's kind of pointless. It's not very good.
Certainly could have just gone to the grocery store as normal if there was no tornado and run into Bev. So, it wasn't for that, as far as plot device, I guess. I was just very confused. I was like shocked and like maybe it's just looking for like some spice in the middle of the book, but it felt very like it felt a little forced.
I really was trying to think of why something like this might happen. I can only think like maybe when we reach the end of the book, maybe a tornado will be going on and like the final scene will also be happening type of situation, like a storm situation, but she has to do something within it, question mark, but I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Like, what's the point of that danger? That's not this book. I don't know.
Maybe the tornado is going to roll through the nursing home while they're getting the information from Lewis, or the tornado is going to roll through while we're getting like all of the spicy details from Joe and like sweep him away like right after we get the last bits of information.
That's crazy. Just sweep him individually away. That's it.
Yes.
Okay.
Cora needs to survive to tell us the rest of the story. So.
Oh, I see. I'm like wondering if like maybe it'll be like a Joe does tell her something and then she ends up being trapped with Beverly in like the same space type of situation, like trapped with a trapped murderer situation. Type of situation.
Yes, I could see that for sure.
Which could be high tension. Which could be interesting, but
it could potentially pay off. I don't think we needed the tornado scene for that, though. Like, that could have just been the one tornado scene if that's the case. So
I also wonder if it's just like a do you remember that we're in the Midwest here type of scene?
Do we need that?
I don't know, maybe.
Okay. I guess we'll see, right? This is one of those things where I think we've had a lot of things this half of the book, though, where I'm like, I hope this pays off the second half of the book.
Yeah, fair. This is like gonna roll back to the Elliot thing, but like when she's detailing her first tornado experience, does she say that Elliot like still brings up that story to like make fun of her or something?
Bully her, basically.
Crazy. I would break his legs so fast. It would be crazy.
It's like that's supposed to be the person who makes you feel safe.
Right.
And like notice how she doesn't believe him when he tells her that there's a tornado warning.
I know. First of all, that seems weird. Yeah, he calls and is like, the sirens are going off, and then the sirens start going off. So I'm like, where were they?
That was also weird. I was like, why didn't she notice before he called?
Yeah. It's not like she's listening to anything. She's just reading. So I did not understand. But like, yeah. That, him making fun of her for that. Tornadoes are fucking scary. Like,
for sure.
They talk about it like people's lives. Like, Cora and like where she is like relatively fine, but it seems like part of the town were like destroyed and people were killed. So like, yeah, it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I just hate the men in this book. I don't know what to say.
I think he's horrible for that. Like, yeah, that's no good.
Yeah.
Well, do we want to solidify some theories here?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about the Clarity disappearing one, which is like the biggest of the book.
Yeah.
I think I'm putting more money on the Beverly doing something.
It's
theory.
Honestly, it's more fun, but I don't have faith that that's the direction this is going. So I think I'm going to stick with Evelyn.
Okay. Mother-daughter.
Yeah.
What a team we are.
I don't know. Some random other ones I thought of was, this one's definitely a wild stretch one, but I was like, what if when Cora and Elliot get married, they use the found rings as their wedding rings?
I think that's, well, first of all, they don't fit on Cora's hands.
Fair.
So I don't know how that's going to work. I guess you could resize them.
Yeah.
I feel like that's weird.
It just seems like maybe one of the wild things that Cora would do, but I do agree it's weird. Like, this is definitely a stretch one for me.
Yeah, it feels like you should just give them to Hazel and kind of be done with them.
Well,
maybe give them to Lewis.
Maybe should have happened by now. Like, she should have really just given it to Hazel, and Hazel could have handled it from here, right?
Right, yeah, for sure. Like, I feel like at this point, even if Cora wanted to keep investigating, you don't really need the rings to do that anymore. Like,
yeah, that's true too. Well, I guess they have like the engravings on them. I would maybe want to keep them around.
Yeah, but are you gonna forget the engravings? Like, they say a few things.
That's fair.
Take a picture. I don't know.
That's also
it's
fair.
2024.
I already mentioned this one too, just that I think Joe knows what happened. I also have like a slight theory that Joe put those rings in there to be found, maybe.
Oh,
so that way like things would come out.
I feel like that's a shitty way to do it.
Oh, I mean, it sounds like maybe like this theory kind of hinges on him either being forced into quietness or believing he can't say anything at this point.
Yeah.
So like looking for like, and like obviously it'd be a very Hail Mary attempt. Why would this actually happen in response, right? But my thought is like maybe he's like that, or he's like, get these out of here. But like yeah, my thought in this theory is he put them there so that they'd be found and someone would investigate because he feels powerless to do so for some reason.
Yeah. The rings being there, we didn't really talk about it a lot, but I think it is important, right? Like, because if Beverly did kill her, why would she put the rings in there and then not just get rid of them type of situation? If Evelyn helped Beverly, then maybe she'd keep the rings or feel some kind of like joy over Clarity being dead, so she would keep them. That's a little like psychotic, but
that's what pushes me in the direction of Evelyn a little bit, though, is like this being almost like a trophy.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. If Lewis doesn't even know about what happened to Clarity, it might be interesting if like he just got the rings back and she was gone and he also doesn't know what happened to her and thinks she just left him type of situation. So Evelyn like had the rings because she took the rings, but then was like, look, Clarity just left these. She left you. And then she used that as a manipulation tactic.
That's actually good. I could believe that for sure.
But I don't know. Regardless, I think Lewis knows like nothing.
Yeah.
So.
I think that seems likely, especially if we do end up finding out that he just kind of got back with Evelyn on his own kind of volition.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's like, oh, like I tried it and it didn't work, so I'm like gonna settle. Like I could see him believing like it's just not meant to be. Yeah, honestly, even if she was actually killed, as opposed to just like it, or if he thought she was disappeared by someone else, he might still believe this. But especially so if he believes she left here, he'd be like, I'll just like settle for what I settled for before. Like that's all I'm good for, kind of thing.
Yeah. The interesting thing would be like talking about my own idea, like if Evelyn showed the rings, there's a possibility that Lewis could suspect Evelyn of doing something to Clarity, and then the question would be like, okay, but then why would they get back together? And so like the possibility is Lewis was investigating it himself.
Oh,
question mark.
Yeah, I find that one hard to believe, but I
want to believe.
Yeah.
I want to believe.
It'd be crazy if that's what we find out, like him on his deathbed is like, actually, here's all the information I've collected over the decades.
Well, the thing is, though, we need more information, right? Like, somebody needs to know something.
It has been a bit of a slow burn. Yeah.
Yeah. There isn't actually much. That's it. There isn't actually much. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I agree.
We've gotten the same scene about Clarity disappearing like twice over, and like nobody else saw anything. Ruth wasn't born. Joe could possibly know something, but that feels like his knowing feels like an admission of the guilty party, so that feels like too much information to be given. So we need like the bridge of something,
or we just need to like fill in 100 pages until we talk to Joe.
Oh my god.
Don't
say that to me.
I think it's possible. Like I think it's really could just be that Joe has all the information and really what we just need is the conditions to line up where Cora realizes that that's the case and like gets him to spill.
This book already feels like so much filler. I don't want it for another 100 pages.
To me, it just feels like it feels not only possible, but I feel like I've seen movies in particular, maybe less so read books like that, but definitely seen movies where that's kind of the case, where it's like you just kind of had to find the right person.
I hate that. I hate it. I also hate it because I know that Joe's probably going to be the one to come up to her. Like, Cora will have done nothing within this book.
I guess I have been hoping she'll do something, but that's very possible.
It doesn't seem likely, I'm afraid.
All right. Well, we'll see.
We'll see. I'm a pessimist, so what can you say? But obviously, if you have your own thoughts and theories, all of our socials are in the description. And next episode, we'll see what happens, I guess. So see you then.
All right. Bye-bye.